In this episode of e-biking for seniors, I'm going to share 2 critical steps that you should follow when you try to assemble your e-bike. I've assembled, I don't know, 6 or 7 of these e-bikes over the course of all my e-bike reviews, and there are 2 critical things that you need to do to have a good, quick assembly without causing injury. And the first is how you are going to remove the bike from the box. A number of the instructions say, lift it out. Well, you're an old guy like me, you can't do that. So let me share the easy way to get this out of the box and then start the assembly. Of course, the first thing is you got to pull anything that's loose out of the box, and then I'll show you the trick. What you want to do is you want to cut using a box cutter the 2 sides here, and then this will fold out, and then you can get at your e-bike without giving yourself a hernia. I've cut the 2 sides. I can hold the bike, flop that down, and now I can easily get at all the components of the bike to cut off all the zip ties and take off all the foam. Much easier than trying to lift it out of the box, even if you got a couple buddies. Well, let me get to the point where I can show you the second critical tip on doing an assembly. I'm demonstrating this on the new Magicycle Deer, which is just an awesome bike. You can see it here behind me, and you've seen it in my earlier episodes. Anyway, the first thing you need to do after you get it all unpacked out of the box is take out the battery, because this is an extra 10 or 15 pounds that you don't want to have to deal with when you're working on this. Now, a lot of manufacturers want you to put the front wheel into the front fork first. And the way you would do that is you'd have to lift the bike up and then lower it down on the wheel. Well, I learned the hard way on my very first e-bike assembly is that is a very good way to bend the rotor. And I did. I had to go out and buy a new rotor because it was my fault. So what I recommend you do is you put the handlebars on first, and then we're going to turn it over where we can gently put the front wheel into the slots where the brake pads are. So let me get the handlebars on, and then I'll demonstrate what I think is the right way to install this front wheel. Everything else is a piece of cake. I've got the handlebars on, and now I'm going to put the front tire on. And the key thing about the front tire is you have to protect the rotor and be sure that it doesn't get bent. So what I need to do is flip the bike over and sit it on top of the handlebars so I can gently put the wheel through the front forks. Now I've got something called handlebar jacks that I use that allow me to put these on the grips and give some distance between the floor and any of the things that are sticking up on the handlebars. You don't want to have any weight on these. If you don't have handlebar jacks, and I'll put a link to them down below, then just get a couple pieces of books or a few pieces of wood and pile them up under each of the handlebars, so that way all the weight is there and not on the controls. Once you take the stand off, be sure you also pull the little clip out that will be behind the 2 brake pads, because where that clip is where you want the rotor to go. Now it's an easy matter of taking the wheel and gently putting it down with the rotor between the brake pads. Once you get the front wheel on, put the axle back through there and be sure you get that as tight as you can, because I have read where if this is loose, obviously the front wheel will come off, and that's a bad thing. So those are the 2 key tips that you need to know when you assemble pretty much any e-bike. You know, don't try and lift it out, and put the wheel on this way instead of the other way around. Comments? Throw it down below. Thanks.